Warning, this episode contains mild to heavy explicit spoilers. Listen at your own risk.
Reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is the Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
A young woman, Valeria, who was raised in a home full of tradition and religion, tries to conceive a child with her partner Raul. As she looks forward to creating a wonderful family home she's been working towards, her mind and her world soon begin to unravel as the facade of what she has splinters into an unknown reality. HUESERA, The Bone Woman, directed by Michelle Garza Cervera, starring Natalia Salan, is a hypnotic Mexican paranormal analogy about the wants versus the expectations of a young woman in a rigid society. The film centers on Valeria, a very self-reliant carpenter who with her musician partner take on the challenge of creating a family. Soon, this happy union begins to show the ugly realities of a young woman who has trapped herself unknowingly for the benefit of others. Valeria is a morally complex individual. A clearly unstable past repeatedly gives insight to her rocky relationships with her family and friends. Her parents love her, but she has a fractured relationship with her sister. Valeria has a deep connection with Octavia, a friend of hers from her goth and reckless youth. She was a very different person than she is now. As she proudly states, "I don't like domestication." With her teenage bleached short haircut and club kid rebellion, we see she has become the very thing she fought against, and this is the interesting idea of the film. As the reality of family and responsibility comes into the forefront, the more and more she begins to experience paranormal visions. People throwing themselves from balconies only to vanish, faceless ghouls that stalk windows. These are ideas put into place to have us, the viewer, question, is she really seeing these creatures? Or is her true self cratering through her mind? It's a gorgeous looking film with great acting. Natalia Salan is an excellent lead, believable in every single frustrated or maniacal action she takes. Alfonso Dosal as the suffering partner Raul can only watch as Valeria self-destructs in slow motion. Mayra Batalla as Octavia is also in an unknown state as Valeria, the woman she loves, seems to not take her seriously. Is Valeria someone responsible enough to grow up? Is she someone who can have a child in the first place? What does she owe society and her family? What do these traditions do to someone when it all goes wrong? The paranormal aspects of the film work really well due to the natural direction by Cervera. It feels planted in reality, even the dreamlike sequences. As for the Bone Woman title, there is no literal creature like that in this film. It's possibly referencing that she continuously cracks her knuckles and sees plenty of people graphically break their arms or legs with bones protruding from the flesh. A very cool visual of mannequin-like assailants that disassemble their prey appear in the final act, but it should be seen to be appreciated. The true horror in this film happens before the scene where the idea of postpartum insanity creates possibly one of the most unnerving scenes I've ever watched on film. It's a very good character study on a woman, like her or hate her, and ultimately I didn't like her, but I understand her, and the safe dream that dematerializes and becomes the biggest fright for her mind. So this film has been considered punk and feminist, and I take to wonder what does that mean for this type of film. Since I'm not a woman, I can only guess what that means. Because is it punk because the character goes to a club scene that has punk music in it, or some sort of she was a punk when she was younger? That's not necessarily a driving aspect of this movie. Sure, she had a different life when she was younger, but I don't see the sort of punk filmmaking like you would in a trauma film or any of that type. And also the feminist angle, I'm trying to figure out what that is when I watch this film, because I think a lot of people throw the tag feminist, and I do think it does apply in a sense to this, but the character Valeria herself sort of destroys every relationship that she's in. She makes bad decisions, she is erratic, but I wonder if that is what's acceptable for a feminist character, that she's able to make these mistakes. Does that feminism apply to, say, the male equivalent, which is, let's say, a male power fantasy film? I don't know what a male equivalent of a female feminist movie is, so I'm just assuming that it's a male power fantasy, say like The Northman, where it's like a Viking guy kicking ass and taking names kind of thing, or any other type of Wolf of Wall Street or something like that. So the feminism here is the freedom of the woman to actually make these mistakes, and is that empowering to women to watch? I can't answer that question myself, but I wonder, as opposed to, say, the Silence of the Lambs, where there's a very strong-willed woman who takes control of her destiny in that movie, and say like Dream Home, which is a Hong Kong slasher film about a woman who is the slasher lead in that movie, basically chopping down everybody in pursuit of her dream, as opposed to Valeria in this film, and her just sort of screwing up every 5 seconds and being selfish and only going out for her feelings. Does that also fall under the umbrella? I can't say that, so I can't really speak on it. It's just a question that I had watching this film about what makes a feminist feature. So if you have any suggestions, or if you think that's the case, please let me know. But I do think that it's interesting that we do see a flawed female character, and some reviewers consider it to be feminist, because I don't know if unfortunately there are guys who look at Patrick Bateman as a male power fantasy when they don't realize that he's kind of a clown, and that's a great movie, as opposed to Ash from Evil Dead, which is a male power fantasy in a way, which is like a good hero. So I think that this film, having flawed and all sort of female lead, makes it an interesting road into feminist film. The punk aspect, I don't think that's the case with this. I don't think this film has punk aesthetic to it. I think it's actually a film almost very traditionally, and it's a beautiful looking film. So that is just something that I thought about as I watched it. Anyway, 7.5 out of 10 jumping out of the mosh pit pregnant and all. This has been the Horror Deconstruction.